Pete Farnan. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you, Greg.
We're talking to you because you have your new solo album out called Home. Before we chat about that, I wanted to go back a way. You have a penchant for what many might call art rock. Who was the first band in that kind of genre that really made an impact on you?
Oh, look, I have to, look, it was the post-punk time, right? And so a lot of those post-punk bands connected with me in a big way. Bands like Wire and Magazine and XTC were a big favorite. But I've got to confess, people didn't just turn into punks overnight. Back in the 70s when we were all kids, we were listening to music, and before that, most people who got into punk and post-punk were into Bowie and Roxy, Eno, and I was a prog kid. I liked prog. I grew up on prog, which is embarrassing, but a lot of proggers ended up like connecting with that post-punk thing, and it certainly diverted me from sort of rockist tropes, I suppose is the term I would use. Like I didn't learn the Jimmy Page licks and the Hendrix licks. I can't do that stuff now. And I just can't do it. I can't bend notes up in tune. I haven't got the licks under my fingers. So anytime I try to play rock, it comes out wrong. The other qualification I'd make is I really like pop music. And so when post-punk came along, one of the things that people like myself and the band I was in, Serious Young Insects, we were connecting with Wire and XTC and the Cure, early Cure, but also it leapt back over the 70s, sort of, macho rock, and it went back to pop. It went back to the Zombies and the Beatles, and so it's art pop, sort of.
Yeah.
I'm giving a long answer here, aren't I?
That's all right. I used to see you guys, the series showing insects at clubs like Bombay Rock back in the day. When you think back of those days, what are the strongest memories? Did you have encounters with your music heroes at the time?
I did. Well, we started doing gigs in April of 1980, showing my age, and by September we'd opened for, shared the stage with Magazine, The Cure, and XTC. Like we'd opened for those three bands. Like, we walked around Lowell Tolhurst's drum kit going, right, how does he get that snare drum sound? And we saw the Seducer microphone and we went, right, Bugs, impulse mics. And that's what we did. We went and copied that. So we didn't actually speak to any of them though, unfortunately. I was far too shy to do that.
Yeah.
I stood around and watched sound check. I watched, Colin Moulding, them struggling to get a good sound out of Colin Moulding's Epiphone bass, for example. I remember that. I remember looking at Dave Formula's keyboard rig from Magazine, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. The next great band that you were in was Boom Crush Opera. When I remember when I was at Duke Magazine, we had you on the front cover several times. It always baffles me that certain Australian bands didn't get higher on the international charts like you guys, despite having killer songs. Do you think Boom Crash Opera gave the overseas market a fair crack? Did you have a fair crack at it?
Well, it depends on who you would speak to. Because of my the shame of growing up as a lapsed Catholic, I always go, oh, it's our fault, it's our fault, it's our fault. While if you spoke to some of the other members of the band, they say it's not our fault, it's not our fault. We certainly made our best effort to get all our ducks in a row. But, the first album was struck by the hideous bad luck of Alex Adkin dying in a car accident just after he finished our album, and our manager was in Burbank at the time, so ready to plug away on this album, and he said literally suddenly people didn't want to know about him. There was a sort of a superstition around Alex's death, he was really a major figure, and I don't know, it's some sort of American cultural thing. But so first album dead. So second album, then they were complaining. They didn't understand, what's an onion skin? Dancing in the Storm to the Americans sounded like country music. They didn't understand that. So the record comes out and Onion Skin takes off. Oh, also we got American management. We were hooked up with Irving Azoff. We got the ducks in a row. But Irving Azoff was a mistake. We should have stayed on Warner's, because once there was any slight hiccup, and the second record single we put out in America on the second album was produced by Jimmy Iovine. So it had a lot of kudos attached to it, but it didn't grab as they expected, and Irving dropped us. He didn't drop us from the label. He just cancelled the tour, and we never got our shot. Third album we made under their noses, and they didn't even put it out. So we just kept hitting these walls despite our best efforts.
Yeah.
It's a long saga, Greg, but it's you can get all your ducks in a row, but you have to also be lucky.
Yeah.
Luck is a big part of it.
Yeah.
But I think we were a great band, and it was a really good band. And when that original lineup with Richard and I both writing was pretty powerful.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So fast forward to 2022, and you have your second solo album.
It's actually my third.
Third, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I put one out in 2009. Yeah.
Okay. So was it a pandemic project, this album?
I guess it was. I mean, who wants to hear a pandemic project, right? But it certainly was in part a result of me being locked at home with my partner and my two daughters. They've moved out now, but so the only other musicians I could lean on were them. So they're all through the record singing. Maudie, my eldest daughter, plays viola and violin a little bit on it, and I just turned the presence of these female voices into a sort of feature, and it gives character to the record. They're sort of like, well, they are literally a chorus, commenting over my shoulder, that's right, that's wrong, shouldn't have done that, let's have more of this, they're singing away. And so that was and there what I did do in the end was I cut some of the songs that were too whingy, pandemic based, and, because I thought that was a little too maudlin.
Yeah.
Still, there's plenty of, even, there's a really perky song about the end of the world, so.
So at what point did you decide that Home was going to be the title track?
Oh, very late. Look, the record, I wrote and recorded the bulk of it in 2 months last year. Just bang, June, July, 2 days a song starting from nothing to basically finished. But I did have this song, Hello at Home, in the can. I'd already done that a year before. So it was once Dean McLaughlin at Mushroom said, you should put that on the record. And once I put that on, I went, well, I've got a song called Home. I've got Hello at Home. The theme emerged. And so it was really when I sequenced the thing in, I think it was July this year, when I went, right, that's the right order. And it does have a theme about it.
Yeah.
It's sort of personal going out into the political.
Yeah. The album opens with the title track Home and that great crude sounding synth sound. What did you use to create that?
Oh gosh, it was so, this is this idea of, write a song now, so it's my Nord Electro, which is just sitting over there. I just turned the distortion on and played the figure. And I just sat there and played the figure for about 5 minutes, because I find there's something really satisfying and it's visceral about just the sound of distortion and repetition. And so everybody thinks it's a guitar, but it's actually just a piano with a piano sample, with distortion.
Yeah.
It was the intro was going to go for about 30 seconds, but my partner heard it and said, "Look, it gets irritating." So I had to sort of judiciously, just when you think that's too much, it suddenly goes from sort of bitter to sweet.
Yeah. The song When Your Parents Go is a very personal song. Tell me about your parents. Were they musical? Did they encourage your music making?
Um, uh, yes, both sides of the family. Is my mother, who's still with us, reminds me every time I visit her because Dad used to claim the music. But I think I've got a pretty good ear for music, in as much as I can hear how chords move. And I think it came from my father, who used to bash out all those 1920s pop tunes, AABA form songs. I got rhythm type changes. All the rules of Western harmony are in those songs. So when I started playing, I just automatically could do it. I can still, and a lot of it came from just Dad playing the piano. I reckon as I was 3, 4 years old. He taught me the ukulele when I was 5. So and everybody else in the house was playing too as well. My 2 older sisters was singing.
Yeah.
One of my sisters still does it. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of music in the hands.
There's not only some great songs, but great sounds on the album. The track Common Touch, for instance, with that backward sounding tone. What's going on there?
Okay, well, it's just that's one of the principles of the record was I really did not want to keep overdubbing. I've worked particularly with Boom Crash Opera. Everything is piled on, so you never hear you often can't hear how good the individual parts are because they're woven into this entire fabric. So I limited myself to 3, maybe 4 instruments playing at this most, and that sound, the whole song just about hangs off it. It's an axe down on where is it? It's in a road case at the moment. It's a fractal axe 8, I think, with an enveloper on it. That's it. or else it's a line 6 pod. I can't remember. It's one of those two with so it's a guitar, which sort of tricks you into thinking it's a synth, but it's a guitar. And the other part of that song, that song has an enveloper guitar, drums that are inspired actually by Mark White from Serious Young Insects. It's a very sort of quirky tom-toms and kind of melodic drum part. And the bass, I just watched that fantastic Rick Rubin McCartney doco, the one where they, and I just was I was reflecting on how athletic Paul McCartney's bass parts were and how sometimes he had to be dialed back from walking all over the vocals. And I thought, I'm going to do one of those bass parts, lots of swoops and almost getting in the way.
Yeah.
And then my daughter is the string part in the middle of it.
Yeah. Speaking of strings, Ray of Hope has that gorgeous string arrangement to it. I guess you worked with strings a bit with your film and theatre work?
Not as much as I would have liked. I've done a little bit of work with Zanny Kolak, a Melbourne musician, over the years, but really when I hire her or when I've worked with her, I just set her loose. I need something here, Zanny. But in this case, Morty, my daughter, played it, and I really wanted that. I wanted the minimalist Steve Reich sort of Philip Glass, I'm playing 3s against her 2s, and everything's just going. It was a little bit of that New York minimalist thing going on, and lots of clashing seconds, notes adjacent to each other was the whole hang.
Yeah.
And then underneath it all, once the song gets going, gosh, I was concerned it was a little bit of a cheap shot. I thought, well, this just sounds like an Elvis Costello song from 1978. The way the changes move, it's got a whir, it's got one of them in it. So it's a kooky little beast.
So in general, what comes first, the song and then you find the sounds, or do you sometimes find that sounds inspire a song?
I was trying to mix it up a bit this time. I really wanted to make a record. I'm a fan of the Beastie Boys, and I bought that fabulous book, which is kicking around somewhere here. There it is, the Beastie Boys book. I thought, oh, I'm going to start this record by building beats, and it didn't work out. Often I ended up back using the entirely traditional technique of, you know, just playing chords on a guitar. But yes, I moved very quickly to recording. You know, the song for me is in part the texture of the recording, so I need to feel the visceral, the tactility of the sound to know that that's got to work as well. As you know, it's not just a combination of notes and harmonies and lyrics, although those things are absolutely bedrock, vitally important. But I would move to sound very quickly, and sometimes, in maybe a third of the instances, I started with the sound. And for example, the song Home did start with, okay, I really like this noise. I just want to sit on this noise, you know, what can we do with this noise? And then the song emerged as a process of working outwards from the sound. And sometimes, you know, and I would also work outwards from a groove or you know, I'd look for the beats I was building usually had some grain to them. They weren't just sort of clean.
Yeah. What were the main guitars you used in the making of the album?
Well, that's a good question. I'll go and get the main one. This is Brett Kingman has christened this the Gaffercaster, and it's basically been my main guitar since the 80s. It's nothing flash. It's a bog average Telecaster. Look, it's got, I'm embarrassed to admit, it has EMGs. I mean, who uses EMGs? So it's bright, and I spend all my time darkening it, trying to get it dark, trying to turn it into what it isn't, basically. And so in the end, I've got an Epiphone dot kicking around there. I'll tell you what, one of the secret weapon. Is this all right, me doing pictures like this?
This is fine.
In the middle of it, I went and bought this fantastic, you know, it's a Fender Mustang bass. Like, I'm a little guy, and you know, large scale, full scale basses, they're hard work for me to play. But I bought this and I put flat wounds on it, and I started playing it with a pick, which I used to do in Boom Crash Opera, but I've been playing with my thumb for years, you know, big and dark and dumb. And not that clicky, you know, pick thing. But I started playing it with a pick, very much influenced by the work of Carol Kaye. You know, the sound Carol Kaye used to get on things like, you know, like the Beach Boys, but even there's that little lick on the Brady Bunch theme, do 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 do, which I think is her. It's kind of a muted pick sound, and I just went nuts over that, and that's on a lot of this record. That, you know, let the bass drive it. This is where the process of using sounds, you know, a song like I'm Singing Again, you know, kind of written on a guitar, but once I got that bass on it, well, then there were beats, a lot of work on beats. But once that bass was on it, I could then turn the acoustic guitar off. That's a note I would give to singer-songwriters. Stop strumming those acoustic guitars. They eat all the space. So if I played an acoustic, I'd usually play it very sketchy and scratchy, and I'd leave enormous holes. And it's in the holes that you can hear you can hear the other sounds. It opens up space.
Yeah. Is there a song on the album that's closer to your heart than others?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. What's on the record? And look, no, there's probably, I could say, oh, that one wasn't so good, but I'm not going to say, you're not meant to say that. I really like Hello at Home, because I just think I nailed it as a pop song. It's got things I like. It's melodic, it's quirky, it's accessible, it has a little bit of politics in it, it's got a sense of humor. I like that. There's a song at the other end of the spectrum called As the River Flows, which is quite dark. And that's, I really like that song because it's quite powerful. Well, I hope it's powerful, and at least the, just that sense that we live in a land of where we've kind of turned our back on history, and so it's going to basically, we've just been dragged along, and we're not really thinking. What's lovely about that song is I just played it on acoustic guitar and got my family to sing, and a bit of electronics just to bind it together. And then I pitched it at Richard Pleasance, who, my partner in Boom Crash Opera, and he went to town on it. He plays about 5, he plays the bass, he's making noises, he's playing electric guitars, he plays a cello on it. And he really turned it into something else. He did a fantastic job. There's another song called Ray of, no, which one is it? It's Happy Days Again, which is essentially it sounds poppy, but it actually doesn't follow any sort of pop song form. And it was essentially turn the iPhone on, bash a whole tone scale, all the notes of a whole tone scale at once on a piano, and just bash, and don't change that, and write the song over that. And essentially most of the ideas in that song went onto the iPhone, and then I just went, right, okay, wacky tempo changes, why not? Go into 3/4, why not? And it was an opportunity to really, within a pop framework, with it sounding pop, but being quite sort of unorthodox with form, and allowing it to suddenly go where it's not meant to go.
You just finished some dates with Models. How did that go, and how'd you go transferring these songs to a live setting? Was that a tricky process?
I'm really enjoying playing live. At the moment I'm doing it by myself. So, and I don't play any songs that people know. So it's a complete getting up, opening for a band that I used to open for 42 years ago. And saying, hi, here's a bunch of quirky pop songs you've never heard before. But I have the confidence to talk with an audience now, and so it works. We have a good time, and everybody sings along at the end. We have a sing along at the end of my show, and I use a loop pedal, but I don't loop myself. I just have snippets of what's off the record. Not the whole. It's not like karaoke. But occasionally I'll do a song and then some backing vocals will just happen, and then that goes away. A little mellotron line will happen, or the strings off Ray at Hope. I play there, but I haven't added drums and bass. So I try to keep it so it's still an acoustic-based show, but with these sort of ghostly appearances of other elements. I played the piano as well. It was a bit of an adventure trying to get it onto an airplane without breaking my back.
So the album's out. What are your hopes and dreams for it?
They're realistic. I mean, really, at this end of my career, any attention would be fabulous. And in fact, that's really it. I just want to be able to keep doing it. I want to be able to make another one. And I'd love to play shows. I want to play a lot more live by myself, and hopefully put a band together. If I can just keep doing this and be on some kind of gradual incline, that would be fabulous. Yeah. That would satisfy me.
Yeah. Do you have some gigs coming up?
Only not enough. At the moment, I'm doing open studio in Melbourne with Rebecca Barnard on November the 25th. So she's doing a set of her songs, I'm doing mine. We've been doing gigs together where we do Joni Mitchell stuff with the original tunings and it's quite a hefty show, but this is all our own material. Then we'll do an album launch. This is what you do these days, isn't it? It's like elections. The launch will be in February. And I'm going to the Adelaide Fringe in March. We're doing a workers' club in March in Melbourne somewhere. The workers' club, and so once I've I've got a few things to sort out, and then I'll get another trip up to Sydney and Brisbane in. But I really can't lock that in until I've locked in some other things. It's a real juggle. It isn't like doors open for me automatically. I've really got to, when I get off this, I'll be banging on doors.
Well, the album is called Home. It's out now. Pete, it's been great to catch up, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Greg.